Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this video, which is going to be the final episode in this series. It has been a very long series, almost 30 episodes I made in response to Dan Gibson. And to be honest, if I'm going to address every single claim he made, then this series will probably go up to 200-300 episodes. So I think what I've done, alhamdulillah, is more than enough to expose this hypothesis of Petra to be the most ridiculous polemic ever made against Islam. In this video, inshallah, we will look at how Dan Gibson himself falsified his own hypothesis. So let's get into it. These are some of the main claims that Dan Gibson made in his hypothesis. According to the data he found, he classified the Qibla into 4 categories. Petra category. These are all of the early mosques which were built in the first 100 years of Islam by the Umayyads until they lost power to the Abbasids, because the Abbasids wanted Mecca, the Umayyads wanted Petra. To falsify this claim, all we need to do is to find a Qibla that didn't face Petra in the first 100 years of Islam. Or we find Qibla that faced Petra after the fall of the Umayyads, because it wouldn't make sense that the Abbasids, who wanted Mecca to be the Qibla, will build mosques facing Petra. Let's deal with this. Do we have mosques from the 1st century of Islam which did not face Petra? In the past few weeks, I have made several videos investigating Dan's claim about the early surviving mosques, and I showed you that at least 7 out of the 10 mosques which he showed in his YouTube documentary did not face Petra, or we don't have evidence that they face Petra. You can go back and watch them. For example, the Guangzhou Mosque, according to Dan Gibson himself, was a 7th century mosque and it didn't face Petra. Wasit Mosque was a 1st century mosque and it didn't face Petra. Baalbek was, according to Dan Gibson, a 1st century mosque and it didn't face Petra. Amman Umayyad Mosque was a 1st century mosque according to Dan Gibson and it didn't face Petra. Let's go to number 2. Do we have any mosque which faced Petra after the fall of the Umayyads? If you go to Dan Gibson website, nabateam.net, and you select the Petra category, you will find in the Petra category mosques which were built after the fall of the Umayyad, after 750, and yet they face Petra. There are even mosques that were built in the 13th and 12th century and they still face Petra. So the first claim that the early mosques were facing Petra up until the Abbasids Caliphate has been falsified. The second category is the between Qibla. According to Dan Gibson, these are mosques which were built after Abdullah ibn Zubayr allegedly moved the Kaaba to Mecca in 690. Some people were confused, should they face Petra or should they face Mecca? So they decided to face a location in between. To falsify this claim, all we need to do is to find a between Qibla before 690. Because it's not possible to have a between Qibla before the alleged moving of the Qibla. And also, if we find a between Qibla after the fall of the Umayyads, then that will also falsify the claim. Because the Abbasids wanted Mecca to be the Qibla. So they wouldn't be confused about Mecca or Petra. Let's deal with this. Can we find a mosque with a between Qibla built before 690? Before Abdullah ibn Zubayr allegedly moved the Kaaba from Petra to Mecca? The answer is yes. According to Dan Gibson, the Mosque of Busra, which was built by Umar ibn Khattab, is a between mosque. His Qibla faced a location in between. I showed you in one of the previous videos that this mosque was built by Umar ibn Khattab, the second caliph, before 690 in 636, and yet it faces a location between Mecca and Petra. The second way to falsify this claim is to find a between Qibla after the fall of the Umayyads, after 750. And if we go to Dan Gibson's website, we will find that there are at least 5 mosques in his list of the between Qibla, at least 5 mosques were built after 750, during the Abbasids Caliphate, and even after the Abbasids Caliphate, up to the 14th century. So again, this second claim that after 690, up to the date of the fall of the Umayyads, some rulers were confused and built mosques facing a location between Mecca and Petra, has been falsified. The next category is the Parallel Mosque, and according to Dan, these are mosques which were built by the Spanish Umayyads. They lost power to the Abbasids and they went to Spain, and from Spain they made their Qibla parallel to a line drawn between Petra and Mecca. So they tried to stay neutral. To falsify this claim, we need to find a parallel Qibla before 750, before the fall of the Umayyads and the rise of the Abbasids. Or if we find a parallel Qibla outside of Spain, because other land in North Africa were mostly controlled by the Abbasids, and then by the Fatimids, and then by other dynasties apart from the Umayyads. So it wouldn't make sense that they will follow the Spanish Umayyads and make their Qibla parallel to a line drawn between Petra and Mecca. Let's deal with this. Do we have a parallel Qibla before the fall of the Umayyads in 750? Yes, if you go to Dan Gibson's website, you will find at least 5 or 6 mosques which were built before 750, and they are categorized as parallel mosques. So they were built before the Umayyads lost power, fled to Spain, and decided to be neutral. The second way to falsify this claim is to find parallel mosques in lands which were not controlled by the Umayyads in Spain. And if you go to Dan Gibson's website, you will find that the vast majority of these so-called parallel mosques were in North Africa. They were not in Spain. So they were in lands which were not controlled by the Umayyads in Spain. Some of the land was even controlled by the Abbasids. Why would the Abbasids follow the Qibla of the Umayyads in Spain and make it parallel rather than making the Qibla towards Mecca? So here we go again. The claim that the parallel mosques were built by the Umayyads in Spain because they decided to be neutral has been falsified. The final category is Mecca. These are the mosques which face Mecca, and they were built by the Abbasids because the Abbasids wanted Mecca to be the Qibla. And to falsify this claim, we just need to find a Qibla that faced Mecca during the Umayyads Caliphate.
109 years after the founding of Islam, a mosque was built in Bangalore, Pakistan. Like all of the other mosques of the period, it had only a Qibla wall without a niche. This mosque, however, pointed towards Mecca in Saudi Arabia.
Here we have the very first mosque that we can identify as pointing to Mecca.
So Dan Gibson here found us a mosque facing Mecca which was built by the Umayyads. This mosque was built by Muhammad ibn Qasim al-Thaqafi, the cousin of Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, an Umayyad ruler. Why would he build his mosque facing Mecca? He's not an Abbasid ruler. But that's not the only mosque. If you go to Dan Gibson's website, you will find 4 to 5 mosques which were built during the Umayyads, which according to Dan Gibson faces Mecca. So this final claim that the mosques facing Mecca were built by the Abbasids has been falsified. And before ending, I would like to remind you that Dan Gibson has an amazing criteria for selecting the mosque, which is the surviving mosque. It's almost like pick and choose. 99% of the mosques in Dan Gibson's website have been rebuilt, and it is down to Dan Gibson's decision. If the Qibla of the mosque fits his narrative, he will select it. If it doesn't fit his narrative, he would say, well, this mosque has been rebuilt, so we are not sure about the original Qibla, as if you are sure about the original Qiblas of all the other mosques. And here we come to the end of this series. It's been 4 months since I started working on this series, and Alhamdulillah, we reached the final episode. Jazakumullahu khairan for all of your support throughout these 4 months. I will just ask you, for the sake of spreading the truth, for the sake of crushing falsehood, please share this to as many people as you can. There might be some people who have been deceived by these lies of Dan Gibson, and this inshallah will help the honest one to clear their doubts and reconsider their decisions if they have left the faith. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.